and welcome to another exciting show where we bring you all the latest in exciting companies doing revelatory things and making impacts on countries, companies, our society in very specific ways. Today, we have CEO and interim CFO, Mr. Pierre Galoppi. He comes with us from the company Brera Holdings PLC, and they are listed as BREA. Pierre, welcome.
Thank you very much, Carmel. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. So just as a start, tell us exactly what Brera Holdings does. Give us your mission, your vision, and what your main focus is at this point.
So Brera Holdings is a publicly traded holding company. Its priority is to be a multi-club ownership organization. We are the very first public multi-club ownership organization. And we had our first IPO last year in January of 2023. And we have since then acquired numerous football clubs, one in North Macedonia, another one in Mongolia, another one in Mozambique. And we also have a Serie A women's professional volleyball league, the best league in the world, the Italian league. And we also have a number of women's teams, one in Strumica, North Macedonia, and the other one as well in Maputo, Mozambique. And that is it we're involved in. We are now involved in a material transaction for the acquisition of a Serie B team to add to our player pathway, to really be the star, the main attraction of our company at this time. So it's an exciting time here at Brera Holdings.
So Mozambique, as you mentioned, is one of the most underdeveloped nations globally, yet Brera Holdings has identified it as a region of significant opportunity. Tell us why, and please elaborate on the strategic rationale behind the expansion into Mozambique.
So the expansion into Mozambique was driven primarily by two factors. Number one, our company is based in Milan, Italy, and therefore Italian interests are important to us when you're overseas. Especially Mozambique happens to be a large base for the operations of Eni. It is a former, of course, Portuguese colony. It is highly underdeveloped, and we think we can make a difference in Mozambique. That's why we're there. We can make a difference as it relates to the local population, as it relates to the kids in the streets, as it relates just to bringing Italian soccer into an environment which has not been particularly paid attention to over the years. And we have found a really welcoming home.
Can only imagine. Let's move on to, you being Brera Holdings PLC, that is the first publicly listed football-focused company in professional sports, multi-club ownership, right? Brera Holdings has a unique business model, to say the least. Won't you please share with us your vision for how this model can drive long-term shareholder value, especially given volatility often associated with sports franchises?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, if you really look objectively at the performance of sports franchises, they're all about capital gains. At the end of the day, if you're able to operate in an economically feasible fashion, at the end of the day, you will acquire more and more value. When we look, for example, at football clubs, which is an important element, obviously, of our strategy, we look at four items. We look, first of all, at economic sustainability. Can the club sustain itself? What kind of funding does it need every year, or can it actually make it on its own? The second thing we look at is the youth program. What kind of youth program is in place now? Does it have a future? Has it established? Is there talent coming down the pipeline? The third item is brand. Is there a brand development? Is there a brand opportunity? Is there something that we can do to improve the brand, the merchandising, the sponsorships that brings along? And those are all elements that can help, obviously, the first point, which is the economic sustainability. And last is infrastructure. What kind of infrastructure is in place now? Can we improve it? Does it need to be improved? Is it the best in the league? Is it the worst in the league? And so it's important because this is, again, one of the four key components when we look at a football team. And the right balance of all four allows for the construct of a management philosophy that basically manages the club in a successful fashion, economically sustainable, and at the same time is able to produce results over time, which increase the value of the club. Most sports clubs, if they're well run, will acquire enormous value. We've seen this again and again. And our theory, our model, our economic model, if you like, really is that of simply pursuing a very good acquisition. You make your money at the beginning. If you start well, if you're able to position well, you're representing all the shareholders with you. When you're negotiating with a team for acquisition, you're really representing all the shareholders that put faith in this team, in our team. And when we negotiate with them, acquisition is the key. We want the money to go into the club for development of the club, for the development of future value as it relates to both our shareholders, the fan experience, and obviously the players that go through our ranks.
Awesome. Sounds like it's all exceptionally well thought out. Now, in light of the recent success of your women's football club in North Macedonia, that's really impressive. I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to get it wrong, so I'm going to leave you to bring up the name of your women's football club. But while you do that, or as you're doing that, please explain how the strategy for investing in and developing women's football teams fits into your overall growth plans.
For sure. First of all, women's sports obviously has taken center stage here in the United States and in a lot of parts of the world, but not everywhere. And this is what we found when we worked in North Macedonia. We took over the team. We acquired a team from Goran Pandev, who is a legend in North Macedonia. He's recognized everywhere you go. If you go walking in the streets with Goran, you will not make it to the restaurant. He has to stop everywhere. They want to take selfies and autographs. He was very popular. He's had good success with his team. We acquired him. We're very, very proud that Gordon is part of our board of shareholders, one of our shareholders, and of course on our board of directors. So we're very happy about that. The most important thing, though, is that this has a cumulative effect. When I was there visiting last year, I went several times. The team from Tiberia approached me, the team captain, and said, "Listen, we're involved with the men's team. We have our women's team. It's a good team, but we want to become part of Brera, with the men's team and with your organization and so on." So we took an opportunity to sit with Alexander, who was the president, really driving force, and we decided this is something we could pursue. Now, I'll give you an example. In the case of Macedonia, they're like 143rd or 147th in the world in women's football. So it's not exactly the powerhouse that you would imagine. So we thought, why not impact something that is so bad? It can only go up with some investment, with some backing. And so we've done that because we remembered as Italians, painfully, that we lost to Macedonia, North Macedonia, at the last World Cup, and we did not make it to the World Cup because North Macedonia beat us. So we wanted to make sure that we go in there and we develop something for everyone. So the first challenge we found with these girls was the fact there was an association. So we developed a plan jointly with the association group. We entered the association, then we converted the company from association to joint stock company. Becoming a joint stock company allows us as a public entity to actually be able to acquire that joint stock company and make it part of our portfolio. We went ahead and did that. When we did that, the Federation originally said that we were going to be relegated because then I was basically a different entity. So in this case, Goran was, again, fantastic. He went in, played his case to the Federation. They backed off. So today we have the first and only privately funded women's football team in North Macedonia. It's the only one. As a matter of fact, it's the only women's team that has that kind of standing in all of Macedonia. They have an excellent volleyball team in Strumica. Again, it's an association. There are no joint stock companies that can be owned. By creating that model, you invite investment. People want to be sponsors. People want to become part of the team. We've had a number of people approach us about that, and we're excited that they're part of the solution.
Because obviously it's needed in the growing, changing landscape that we all live in. As you mentioned, women's sports are taking more prevalence, but it's also because of people like you bringing attention to the infrastructure that's needed, the investment, all of these things you mentioned. Now, what opportunities specifically do you see in this rapidly evolving women's game globally? And then how do you present that to investors? If you had to just tell investors listening right now, what are the main opportunities that they should be keeping their eye on as they make the decision to get involved or not?
Well, I believe women's sports represents the greatest opportunity for capital gain than any other sport. It's basically a fresh start. And in a lot of these countries, I have been at the games that the girls play, that the women play in Macedonia. And I want to tell you, it's an exciting set of fans that are watching it. And the more they win, the more they show, like everything else. I believe women's sports. We were just in a symposium in New York 2 weeks ago, which talked specifically about women's sports. It's an exciting time to be in women's sports. You could develop the next Messi, if you'd like, or the female Messi, whatever it is, in Macedonia, be playing here in the United States or the other way around. I mean, I think women's sports represents a tremendous opportunity for the investor because it's really a fresh start. It's not established. It's starting to establish itself, and I think a lot of the particularly female investors have developed that have invested in the space. Women like Michelle Kang have done a tremendous job in developing the profile, and we look forward to becoming part of that in our own. And for us, what's also important is not to invest in the big teams, to invest in the small teams, to make a difference where it matters. You know, to buy a big team in a big city is great, but to buy a small team in a remote city to make an impact difference, for us, is just as important.
Exactly. It's about making the impact and changing the lives where you can. I mean, everybody sometimes wants to flock. Typical, you know, in the stock world, it's all flock to the most popular stock and just load that up. Obviously, it's a sign that things are going well, is why they are the most popular. But to your point, and there's a lot of impact investors out there who want to not only get financial gain, but also make big strides and big impact in terms of on the grassroots levels.
You're so right, Carmel. And that's what these investments are about. They're about, you know, there is the main driver, and then there are these other projects that are just as important.
Okay, so with the recent announcement of Brera Holdings' strong start to the season, can you share any insights into the operational and financial metrics that you are tracking for the individual club investments? Let's start with that as the first part of my question.
So first of all, as far as an investment is concerned, the reality is that the club is self-sufficient. Between the city and the sponsorships we get, the costs are covered by the expenses. The expenses are covered by the revenues generated locally, both from local sponsorships as well as government support until recently. Hopefully, government doesn't change. But other than that, regardless, we're not talking about massive budgets here. So it's something that is highly manageable. So that's as it relates to the financial well-being. As it relates to the team itself, it is undefeated, and it has a plus 58 goals advantage over the next position. So it's absolutely dominating the league. And the most important part about that, I want to tell you the real reason for it. That means they're going to win. If they win, that means they're going to the Champions League. If they go, because it's part of Europe. If they go to the Champions League, that means they're going to play somewhere throughout the continent. And then who knows where they might be able to go. And this is the way to establish yourself really and establish North Macedonian football and establish the women's sports originating from that part of the world.
Excellent. Now, second part of the question, how do these performance indicators then inform how you allocate capital across your portfolio of the football assets?
Well, the allocation of capital is really dependent upon the actual resource requirement. And in our case, if we're able to make it to the champions, as it looks like, and if we were to make it to the first round, it would mean that this team would earn sufficient funding to probably be set for the next 2 years, if not 3. So, and frankly, we've had minimum up to this point, relatively minimum investment. So, we stand there behind it. We stand there with the facilities, our trainers, our people behind it. But as far as we're concerned, they'd be able to do everything pretty much on their own. They're really a monument to independence. They've done a tremendous job, and we're just there in awe and to support their effort.
Excellent. Pierre, just one more question from me. Just understanding, Africa and some of these countries that are a little less fortunate, so to speak, or less supported on basic levels, right? I want to understand how supported should an investor feel, but you as well as a company in these countries ensuring kids are supported with their basic needs to even have the strength, the resilience, the capacity to bring their best to the game. the game.
So first of all, Mozambique, as you know, because you're from South Africa, is an ex-Portuguese colony. But the name of the game in that part of the world is player transfers. Africa continues to represent a tremendous resource of talent for all of the European play, all of the play that's taking place in Europe. Many of the talent comes from Africa. And typically it is regional, meaning that the places like Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde will usually gravitate towards the Portuguese market, where they have one of the most excellent resale operations in Europe. Then the other countries like Senegal, the Congo would go towards Belgium traditionally, France, but mostly Belgium. And then they will settle. So what you have is you have a player transfer opportunity in this continent, depending on where it's from. In our case, we have probably the best facilities as it relates to Mozambique. They've done a beautiful job with an excellent partner. We have facilities where the kids eat, they're clothed, they're taken care of, and we make sure that happens. Especially given the latest political turmoil in the country, they could find home and shelter where they played football, and that's an important consideration for them. We're proud to be able to provide that. And by the way, in South Africa, we have a number of players which are being sought by South African teams, so we're looking forward to have that opportunity.
Yeah, they're definitely growing, and 100% agree with you. There's a lot of talent across sports, really, in Africa, but especially on the soccer front as well.
And I want to make one last point. One important point is the following. As the advent of the internet technology continues to develop, the reality is that the importance of scouting operations, scouts, and so on starts to be reduced because the technology replaces that. We are on platforms today in Mozambique, in Macedonia, where the players are actually seeing video by hundreds of teams around the world. And those teams can make an appeal to local organizations. Those organizations will fund the transfer of the player to these countries. So I believe the advent of technology will wind up creating a natural distribution of talent from Africa into the top markets in the world, Europe, and of course, as the MLS is developing now. So we're seeing that. As a matter of fact, we have one of our players, an MLS account was interested in them. And imagine that. They're playing in Maputo. They're playing in the middle of absolutely nowhere. Beautiful facility, but really far, far away. And some academy in Cleveland or a town like that is able to look at the video and say, we like this guy. They're able to contact the technology provider who gets a hold of the local distributor, who gets a hold of the young man playing and tell him, listen, this MLS team would like to see you. Are you interested? And he plays for us. That kid can now look to go to the United States. It's something purely technical. Nobody had to fly there. Nobody had to sit down with the parents. None of that. All of this was done strictly. And we think the future is in that continued development of technology that provides access, especially to these disadvantaged areas all over the world. That didn't happen before. You'd have to have the expert. The guy who knew Maputo, who'd fly to Maputo, he'd stay at a usual hotel, and then he'd be hustled by 2 or 3 brokers. Those walls are coming down as the technology continues to grow.
Another way technology is collapsing the timeframes of many of the processes and activities that typically would take months or years. To your point, it's exciting, and I love that you can change lives and fulfill dreams and enhance an area and who knows what comes of that. So we look forward to catching up and seeing where Brera Holdings PLC takes this. But if there's anything you can speak to for the next 3 years or so that we should be looking out for in terms of milestones, what would you mention right now?
Well, what I would mention to you is that what we have done and what we're in the process of doing is developing what we call a player pathway. As an example, even in our small day-to-day, we have players in Mozambique. So let's say the top player in Mozambique, we had our team in North Macedonia that actually flew their professionals to Maputo earlier in the year. They met with them, they saw the talent, they ranked them, the video, everything. They know them all. So now one of the top guys in Mozambique is going to be in January in Macedonia. He's going to spend 2 years playing in North Macedonia with our team Strumica. Hopefully he will be a big success. If he is, then he could be a candidate to move to our future Serie B team. And then from there, he could play 1 year, 2 years, and that's a direct jump into the bigger markets. And that is a player pathway that we can provide to our players within our own system without having to buy and sell. This is all along, the path is all along the pathway. So what we're going to be doing over the next few years, we're going to be increasing the structures that make up that pathway, adding another team, maybe in Portugal, and then another team in South America, probably the South America, which I think would make sense. Then taking, obviously, the opportunity to buy a team in Asia. Okay, and so what you're beginning to see a pathway, like a curve, if you like. And on this curve, you have teams all along the path, and a person can come, pick up, develop, go, and then move on. So our job is simply to identify the talent, provide these kids with as much support as we can, move them along the pathway until they can achieve what we can no longer give them, bigger teams than we have, and we're delighted for them. They'll be delighted for us, because along the way, when eventually the talented player leaves for a big team, the payment made by the organization covers the entire chain. So it covers the first training teams, so the entire organization gets compensated by this one player. So the key is to have a number of talented players along the pathway, along the pipeline, so they provide an ongoing recurrent revenue that helps to develop further talent.
Wonderful. Makes absolute sense. And where can investors or anyone listening reach out for more information?
Our website is certainly always available at it's www, just like behind me, BREA and obviously they can reach out there. They can buy our stock. We're fairly active on the press release circuit, as well as you guys. You guys do a great job. And obviously, they can always reach out to me personally, Pierre@BreraHoldings.com. I'll be happy to answer anyone who's interested in speaking with me.
Once again, that's CEO and interim CFO, Mr. Pierre Galoppi. He is with Brera Holdings PLC. They are trading as BREA. As far as we're concerned, stay tuned for more. Brought to you, as always, by the Harvest Podcast, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.